Does world-shattering innovation come about? Our next guest says that the secret lies within the tribal culture that every society is built upon. So how do you motivate the tribes? Well, you need to push them forward along the 5 stages of tribal culture. Dave Logan is co-founder and senior partner at CultureSync, a management consulting firm specializing in cultural change, strategy, and negotiation. He's also a lecturer at the University of Southern California's Marshall School of Business and the best-selling author of Tribal Leadership, Leveraging Natural Groups to Build a Thriving Organization. Dave, welcome to Full Frame.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you on. So I don't think, what's interesting, take a step back for us, because Tribal Leadership, I think it's a fantastic book, but you don't get there overnight. I mean, how long did it take you as a consultant before you started to say, hey, wait a minute, there's this whole tribal culture thing going on?
Oh, it was a long road. So I wrote the book with 2 other people. I was the lead author. John King, my second author, and I spent years trying to hammer this out. The idea of tribes took a long time. So I'm motivated like a lot of people. I was a college professor at USC when I was about 24. And I really wanted to crack the code on culture. And how do you build great culture? Culture is clearly so important. Everybody agrees it's important. But when you look at the things that people actually do to build culture, they don't work. And people hate them. So let's see, they don't work and people hate them. So let's do more of them and have them charge even more money. It was so hard. The key was, we were thinking of one particular organization. It was Amgen. When Amgen was a much smaller company, when Gordon Binder was the CEO, it was exceptionally well run, well led. People just loved being there. We realized there's kind of no Amgen. I mean, it's a company, it's a legal document, or a legal document says it's a company, but it's really like a little collection of small towns. And when we looked at it that way, it made a lot of sense. So how do you change the culture of a company? Well, you got to get into one of the small towns and change the culture there. Then go to another small town and change the culture there. And that was the Rosetta Stone that just opened the world up.
So talk to us about the different stages.
Sure. So there are 5, and it goes from everything you don't want to probably everything you do want. And stage 1, the theme of it is life sucks. And this is about 2% of tribes, talking about employed tribes. And in stage 1, what people will say about themselves, their work, and each other is it's broken. And you're just getting a raw deal in life. And so people will break the rules, they'll undermine their values. If it's a company, they'll lie, they'll cheat, they'll steal. I've got dozens of cases of accounting fraud, some of them very smart. I'll just give you one quick one that was really fun. Not from an organization, but in Chicago, there was a neighborhood that had some problems with gangs, and a local church rented an apartment. And in the apartment, they installed some equipment that would broadcast on a regular basis gospel music, because their view was gospel music will make everybody better. And so the gang weren't stupid, found the apartment, no one was living there, so they broke in and they hijacked all the equipment and they replaced what they were playing with the music that people in the neighborhood liked, but they also put a code that you could hear in between the songs that had to do with things that the gang was going to be doing that day. So if you knew the code, you'd know what the gang was doing. And it was brilliant, right? They outmaneuvered the cops, they outmaneuvered all the authorities that were trying to shut them down. Think if that amount of innovation was brought into a company. I mean, that would be stunning, but it was all in service of something that was a problem. So that's stage 1. So going to stage 2. That one is very common. It's 1 in 4 tribes, 25%. And the theme there is not life sucks, but it's my life sucks. So I can see you're doing fine. Wow, you got this great show, but I don't, so it's not good for me. And in these type of cultures, there is no innovation. There's very little collaboration. People come in, they'll do the minimum to not get fired. That great line from the movie Office Space. I do the minimum to not get fired. And we see these problems a lot. I just came back from a trip internationally yesterday, and I got on the plane, and I had a big bottle of Evian water in my bag. And I know exactly the reason. And it was because I was going through the line, and while they were supposed to be looking at my bag through the x-ray machine, they were actually complaining about the schedule and what an idiot the boss was. Right, so avoiding accountability, results tank. Now, it was a bottle of Evian, probably no harm, no foul, but what if that were a surgery center? Right, then it gets very serious. Stage 3 is the big one. It's 49% of tribes. And the theme there is, I'm great and don't know how to break it to you, but you're not, right? I'm great and you're not. Now, if we're in a culture where everybody talks that way, you'll then say, no, Dave, you're great and I'm not, and then we fight. And so the way this shows up in companies is we're in a meeting and someone says, what's your great idea to turn the place around? And you say what your idea is. And I say, well, let me tell you why that's wrong. And actually the right answer, which of course is my answer, and then someone else says, well, my idea, right? So it's I, me, my. And so at 4, the theme is not I'm great, but we're great. And there has to be a them. So we're great and they're not. And that's about 22% of tribes. Stage 3, I'm great, you're not, is about 49%. So stage 4 just gets a lot more done. The innovation is a lot easier. So you look at the studies of what people want, great ideas, getting them implemented. They're so easy at stage 4. And in some cases, they're impossibly hard at stage 3 and don't even think about it at stage 2. And the last one is stage 5. That's very rare. It's about 2% of tribes. And the theme there is life is great. So the big change between 3 and 4 is there's no them. So it's not that we're great and they have to suck. It's we can somehow partner with others and do something extraordinary. I'll just give you a really quick example. The team that produced the first iPhone, the very first one, they did not come together and ask, how do we produce a better iPhone than Nokia, which was one of the big ones at the time. They said, what could we do that's beyond anything that exists in the world, that will leapfrog everything? And the famous line from Steve Jobs was he wanted to be, and my understanding is he pounded the table when he said it, astonished. So they built a phone that would astonish people. And that's stage 5. It's history-changing innovation.
How do companies get stuck, and how do you get them unstuck? Because you can get stuck in one of these stages and stay there for a long time, right?
Yeah, how they got stuck is actually the key to how they get unstuck. The problem is how we train managers in companies. So if you're working for me, that means I'm going to call you to my office, and I'm going to be sitting behind my desk, and you're sitting in front of my desk in a less comfortable chair, and I might make nice talk, and then eventually I'll say, look, I need you to do these things. You should write these down, because I'm going to tell you how you did on these 3 things. That's I'm great, and you suck. That's the tone of it. Now, if I'm a VP and you're a director, that means you've got managers, and then you reverse it. Then now you're sitting here, and you're going to tell them they suck, all the way up and down the chain. So the way we teach managers and train them and hold them accountable has this awful byproduct that it creates these terrible work cultures. And I've got a quote, I can't nail down, he actually said this, but there's a lot of evidence he probably did. Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, is alleged to have said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So where CEOs spend their time is on the strategy, and they wonder why they can't get it done, because you didn't build a culture that wants to implement it.
How much dysfunction is there out there in the American workforce, would you say?
Well, you know, I'm an optimist, so understand this is coming from an optimist. Things are so bad, I'm surprised anything actually ever gets done. I'm surprised TV shows actually air. I'm surprised mail actually gets delivered. I'm surprised that my cable, which happens to be Time Warner, ever works.
So it's really good. You are an optimist. Well, how do you switch that? How do you switch the light switch then? I mean,
if you build a great culture and you find the right strategy and you set people loose and do a few bad things so they don't burn the place down accidentally, you're going to make magic happen. So actually getting unstuck is easy once you see what the problem is. And the problem is management. Now, please understand, if you looked at my business card from USC, I'm in the management department. So nothing against management. Management's very important. You have to do it. We just do it really badly.
So what do I need to be a great leader? I mean, if I'm sitting there in a room with you and I want to take my company to the next level, what are the attributes I need?
Yeah, there's a couple. And I'll tell you, we missed an important thing with tribal leadership. And I was a lead author, so I'll take the hit on it. This is going to sound strange. We did not write enough about anger. And I know that sounds strange, but people hear stage 5, life is great. And what they kind of imagine is Burning Man, right? A bunch of people high on drugs, walking around naked. The bunnies and the wolves are holding hands, singing We Are the World. That's not stage 5 at all. Stage 5 is realizing that something in the world is so royally messed up that we of all people have to get together and fix it. So everybody's at war, but you get to choose your war. So stage 4 is at war with whoever you're playing. So one of the things that we really encourage people to do is to find the thing that for you is a source of righteous indignation. But here's the key. When you find it, don't get so mad that you do stupid things. If you look at the lives, and this is probably going to ruffle some feathers, of people like Martin Luther King, who I believe was one of the greatest leaders this country ever had, or Abraham Lincoln, they were both angry people. Mother Teresa was an angry woman, but they used the anger. They weren't used by it. So finding that sense of righteous indignation, it gives you an edge. If you don't find it, you become a bit of a Jimmy Carter, who was a very nice person by all accounts, and by many of the same accounts, not a very effective president.
Terrific guy, too. I had the chance to interview him. I would disagree with you and say that that's probably stage 5 LSD, the Burning Man, but we'll leave it there. I interviewed a guy years ago, venture capitalist, not far from here in Pasadena. He had this huge warehouse, and he had all these incubator companies,
Yeah.
and he would fund them. And he said to me, when they get to 100 employees, I ask for my money back and whatever profit, and then I get them out of here. Because once you get past 100,
Yeah.
it's no longer a family, and then he's got that job, I should have that job, I'm going to knife him in the back. Is there something to that? I mean, is part of the problem that if you grow a company too large, it's difficult to kind of have that kind of attitude, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's really true. There's a number of companies that do that. That's based on something that's very old. It's called the Dunbar number. Robin Dunbar, sociologist, found that down through time, this number is actually 150, tends to recur. So we define a tribe as between 20 and 150 people. So as long as you're within that bound, that can function as a tribe. There's something magic about 150. We don't know if it's a limitation on the brain. Maybe you just can't keep track of that many people. But when you get a group that's bigger, it tends to split. But in the process of splitting, it's exactly what you said. There's backbiting, there's a lot of politicking, it turns very negative. So if I were running a very large company, I would do the same thing. I would make sure that the local units never get bigger than 150.
And the interaction of tribes, talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're running a big company, you're going to have a whole bunch of tribes. So I had the good fortune of spending a bit of time with Howard Schultz, and like many of the best leaders that we interviewed, he doesn't think of Starbucks. He thinks of Starbucks, 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 the individual stores. So within an individual store, you've got a tribe. And then, of course, you have people above the stores. You've got regions and districts. And so there's some interchange between them. And so if you just kind of pause there, that's actually all you need to know. So you make the individual tribes good, and you manage the exchanges. And then you can scale that to the sky.
If leaders out there in business now are walking around with your book as their Bible, how do you think the world's going to change in the next 5, 10 years? I mean, is there ever going to be a time where we go through the TSA and they're going to catch your water, or they're not going to be complaining about their schedule and how much their life sucks? I mean, is there ever a time where you might be able to even take the low rungs and move them up?
Absolutely, yes. When I started doing this, along with John, that was many years ago now, when we talked about stage 5, people looked at us like we were crazy. I mean, no company could ever function that way. No tribe could ever function that way. You're nuts. We've gotten zero pushback in probably the last 10 years. So yeah, there's been a real shift. And now you look at the companies that are just getting it right year after year after year, and most of us know that those are stage 4 groups. I'll give you the biggest source of optimism. When I teach undergrads, they know this stuff, and they're not willing to put up with stage 3 cultures. They're just not going to do it.
Fascinating. David, thanks so much. I want you to work on my cable company.